Welcome to another episode of the CG Garage. This is episode number 391, featuring Jerome Denjean, better known as Jed, who, besides being at Blur for nearly 20 years, he is also the supervising creative director for Love, Death, and Robots, which is what we get into quite a bit on this episode. This is his second time on the show. Very happy to have him. I absolutely love Love, Death, and Robots. I love all the things he's done, and since he is the supervising creative director, he actually works with all the different vendors to create the consistencies and the differences and the looks and the feels of all of the shows. So he's kind of one of the people, sort of like the maestro between all of the different things, but lets everyone do their own thing, which is kind of amazing and wonderful. So we get into a lot of the different shorts, not all of them, but we get into several of them and sort of his feelings about how they were done and how the vendors worked. And it was really kind of cool to do that. And at the end of the episode, this is before we knew whether season 4 was going to come out or not. We talk about that, but proud to say that since then we have found out that yes, indeed, they have greenlit season 4. So very happy for all of our good friends over at Blur and all the cool things they're doing. Now, Kristen, what did you think of this show?
Well, this was a great one. Yeah, if you love Death and Robots, watch it, listen. But I just wanted to give a little background on Jerome. Before he was supervising creative director on LDNR, he was also head of CG, I think, for about 14 years at Blur. Just worked on some amazing projects, including the Warhammer Online and Halo 2 Anniversary Edition game cinematics. And then, as you guys talk about, the opening credit for David Fincher's The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. So gotta check those out. But yeah, you guys kind of go. Jed talks about how the creation of each episode and how they have to be just completely different and fresh. So that's super interesting. And then he also talks about kind of Alberto's technique and shooting and how it's more rotomation and not motion capture. And he just goes off tons of reference. So yeah, it's really fun to listen to and lots of good info.
Lots of great stuff. Absolutely love talking about this stuff. And I say very proud for Tim and all the guys at Blur and Jed, of course, on this. All right. We got several big announcements we want to get through. So make sure we can get through those before so you guys can listen to the podcast. All this can be found at chaos.com. So the first one is V-Ray 6 for Maya is officially out. You should, guys go check it out. Really happy about it. Besides a lot of the same features that are in V-Ray 6 for Macs, such as the V-Ray Enmesh and the finite dome light, procedural clouds. We also have some really cool other features that are in there, including some enhanced USD support. So lots of cool stuff there. There's also a new V-Ray profiler, which calculates a lot of the memory consumption. So you can get a much better idea of what's actually happening during your rendering and what's slowing it down or not, or what could be improved or things of that nature. So definitely really useful to have. It's also gotten much faster. It's about 30% faster for all the fog rendering, but it's also about twice as fast for most of the translucent rendering. So lots of new stuff. Go check it out. Go to chaos.com. And if you're wondering where some of the other ones for V-Ray 6, there's public betas out right now also for SketchUp and Rhino for V-Ray 6. So go check that out. Now, lots of online events or lots of events happening in September. Kristen, go ahead and let people know what's going on.
All right, so you can find out about all these at chaos.com/events, but the first one is this week, September 8th and 9th. 24 Hours of Chaos is back. It's a series of 12 back-to-back online shows with 3D artists, designers, ArcViz, VFX, animation, all around the world. And we are show 5, so check us out. It'll be really fun, lots of prizes giving away, so that's always fun. And then right after that, on September 15th through 16th, we have 3D Basecamp in Poland. And then after that, you will be at THU September 18th through 24th. So if anyone's going, let Chris know and he'll say hi. Yeah. And then September 26th through 30th, we have 3D Basecamp in Vancouver. And then September 27th through 29th, Autodesk University at New Orleans. But again, go to chaos.com/events to find out about all these.
Yeah, absolutely. Just a quick reminder, Kristen said we are going to be show 5 for 24 Hours of Chaos. I'm very excited. I'm going to be presenting some stuff on virtual production. I've been doing a lot of work with V-Ray for Unreal and Vantage and doing some live linking to get fully ray traced virtual cameras. And it's been exciting work. So I'm excited to present that at that event. So make sure and check it out on show 5. As well as all the other shows, which is a lot of fun. And regarding THU, I'll be obviously recording a bunch of podcasts over there. So if you want to say hi, as Kristen said, I would love to say hi. All right. Now, if people want to know more about the podcast, Kristen, where can they go?
You can go to facebook.com/cggaragepodcast or chaos.com/cggarage. And if you'd like to watch us, go to youtube.com/chaosgrouptv.
Perfect. And if you guys have any ideas of podcasts, make sure and let us know. Our email is labs@chaos.com. But for now, please enjoy episode number 391 with our good friend Jed from Blur.
Welcome to another CG Garage, where the Chaos Group talks. You'll know it's over when the last bucket drops. We're gonna fire off rays in high dynamic range. We know that ambient occlusion is passé. Global illumination won't lead you astray. And while image-based lighting is really swell, you need to make sure everything has Fresnel.
All right, Jed. So it's been a few years since we've been on. Obviously, you have been very busy with Love, Death, and Robots. I think from the very first season, released season 3. We're all hoping for season 4. But tell us, has this been primarily what you've been focusing on for the last several years? Because you've been in charge of all of it in a lot of ways, and a lot of the visual effects and all that stuff, right?
Yeah, I mean, since the beginning, it's been pretty much my only focus. Plus some odd Blur business on the side. I'm always there to help, like if a project needs it but Blur is so involved in all the production of Love, Death, and Robots anyway that the two functions just kind of spill a little bit, but it's mostly been all about the show, yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
it's been about 5 years now.
5 years. Yep. I mean, I think it's kind of amazing. I mean, we'll get a little bit into the details, obviously, but I think what Blur's done with Love, Death, and Robots, it's now almost become like the perfect example of a new animation era. Like everyone talks about this. It's like, I want to create animations that are, deeper or have a lot more mature nuance to it, that like Love, Death, and Robots. That's what I hear so much. I mean, how does it feel to sort of be part of a new genre almost in animation, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think it feels good. I don't know that I don't think we invented it, like I think it's been around in like a lot of different different places, but I think we might have gathered a lot of it into one package, and the fact that it's on Netflix makes it a little bit more visible to people who are usually not used to watching animation in any other context than just family stuff and just like the Disney and the Pixar movies.
Sure.
So I think that's we're really proud of that for sure. To be able to show the potential of animation to a larger audience, I think is the best thing we can ever hope for.
Yeah, I think why I sort of call it a genre is specifically because it is each series is every piece is a different style and a different story, or a different, some of it is comedy, some of it is drama, some of it is action, and they're all different in a lot of ways, which sort of makes it more of a genre than a piece, which is a good thing. But for you, who's responsible for all of them, how is that for you in terms of like, I've got to help give direction or whatever you're supposed to be doing? Well, actually describe to people, what is your role in this series so people get a better idea?
I think that the title has changed over the seasons. I think we started calling this role VFX supervisor, and then it was a little confusing, I think, to certain people, just because it seems to imply live action, and that's the medium that we have the least of. We really don't have a lot of a lot of just visual effects, like just the the regular type. So so we changed it to a supervising creative director on the last one. But the role is still the same, which is, you know, there's a very small team just straight outside of a Blur. But the LDR team, like the core team, there's a core of like 3 people, which is Jennifer Yu Nelson, who's the supervising director, and she helps all the directors with the stories, making sure that, you know, that Tim's original vision of the show is executed well. This Victoria Howard is the supervising producer, and she helps obviously with the budget and she helps all the producers of all the different companies that work with us. And I'm you know, as the creative director, so to speak, like I help, like my role is to make sure that all the visuals are at the level that we know they can be. So it's really just helping all the companies to make sure that, you know, they execute, you know, at the best level they can do, making sure that they have everything they need. And then more and more, it's also making sure that that everything still feels fresh, because, you know, as we add episodes, like we're at about 30, 35 episodes now, we need to make sure that there's no 2 worlds that look too similar. So it's still trying to, you know, sometimes when somebody comes up with an idea, and I know that either it's been done before or that another company is working on something very similar, then we have to find ways to just make it feel fresh.
Right. Which I think is really cool. And actually, I find that to be an amazing challenge, right? Because you have to look at everything in a unique way, right? This season it's like you were doing 9 completely different things at the same time, right?
Yeah, no, for sure. And 9 and even more sometimes, because, you know, like the first season was 18 episodes, and we did them all at the same time. The second season was really volume 2 and 3, except we delivered it into 2 years, like a year apart, in 2 halves. But we really started production on all of them at the same time almost. So so there was a period of time where there was more than just those last 9 in production. It was almost all of them.
Right. And how was that? I mean, to be able to I mean, and obviously you had teams all around the world, and so you had to sort of sync up at different times with different people. So it must have been a bit of a challenge to do all of that as well, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit of a challenge to be able to talk with everybody in the same week, because, you know, I mean, it's a lot of people when you count like 18 episodes going on at the same time. Just if you want to talk for an hour with every team, that's already like half your week that's gone. But it's but, you know, I'm very, very fortunate in that I get to work with like such amazing companies that really know what they're doing. And, you know, my job is really to just direct the traffic a little bit sometimes, but overall, I love just being able to inspire them to just kind of do some certain things a little differently sometimes, but overall, they really carry the most of the weight of the work. So I can't complain really.
Wow, that's awesome. Well, I think it's amazing. I still remember, you know, many years ago on this podcast, actually, when I interviewed Tim, and he said, I've always wanted to do anthology animation, and here we are, season 3, and everyone just can't wait for the next one. So it's really kind of cool to see that. And I really love it. So let's talk a little bit about some of the individual pieces and sort of how they came to be, and what was the inspiration, and how you guys executed it. So I'd like to I'm just going to pull out a few of the ones that I think would be great to talk about. The first one is going to be Bad Traveling, and obviously interested in the idea of Fincher getting involved in animation, because I mean, he was always part of this, at least as an executive producer in some ways, but I don't think he'd ever directed an animation before. Am I correct?
No, that's his first animation project. So we're very proud to have been able to do that with him. I mean, he's been one of the executive producers and one of the driving forces behind the project since the beginning, since many years before that. So he's always had a love for the medium, and I think, but he's a busy man. He's got a lot of projects already, and it's there's only so many days in the year that he can work, right? But I think he was after the reception of the first season, after he got to see all these products finished and see how it actually all kind of came together. I think he really wanted to be part of it and be able to say that he had done one, because I think he was very curious and he really wanted to try it, because as a filmmaker, I think that's what, I mean, you can't, I was talking about the joy of being able to introduce animation to a larger audience, but to be able to have a filmmaker of his caliber, just be curious and want to tell stories with that medium. After seeing the first season, that's the best compliment we can ever get. So we're really proud to be able to, first to want him to do it, and then also Alberto to be able to to be able to provide him the tools so that he could tell the story, which is a pretty amazing story. That's one of my favorite, of all time.
For sure. I mean, I think that's interesting is that he's so iconic and director, but I'm just curious about what was it like, to have him as a director, because obviously, Blur has a lot of experience with animation directors and people of that nature. And sort of, were you guys able to sort of say, okay, David, here's how we can communicate better for direction as opposed to live action direction or things of that nature? How was he able to give some feedback? Obviously, he knows CG very well. He's done a lot of CG work himself. So, but you
can't fool him in.
Yeah.
You can't tell him, no, we can't do that. He knows what you can do and what you can't.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, what was it? Was he sort of, did he experience some new skill sets he had to develop as a director for animation, or do you think it was all it kind of worked that way?
We've been very fortunate, because every time we've worked with him, he's been so collaborative and so trusting. I mean, he has really good relationship with Tim. Obviously, they've known each other for years, and so they really trust each other. So Tim can tell him, okay, well, just at this point we're going to show you the animatic, and this is what you can comment on, and this is what this is what we can address maybe later.
Right.
So it was more like this kind of things, because otherwise he came prepared. He knows what steps are really important in a film. So he came really prepared to the mocap session, and he directed the actors during mocap the way he would direct a normal shoot. And so, he has a vision, and he's very he knows how to tell a story. I mean, there's no other way to say it. Then after that, the rest we just provided some tools for him to do it. But I'm not sure overall it was that much of a different process for him. He was great in all the reviews. He was great in all the, he was very patient with us to explain some things that we're not necessarily familiar with, because we don't do a lot of live action.
Right.
But I think it was a joy for everybody involved to have been part of that project.
Yeah, I think obviously, you mentioned that it was mocap, which I think is a big difference, right? So in a sense, the virtual production in a lot of ways sort of enabled him to use some of his familiar tools that he uses from live action and still make it work for animation in a lot of ways, right?
Yeah, and it allowed him to prepare the motion capture shoot to be even more prepared for that, because
Right.
we were already able to provide him with some angles. So we already had a rough version of the ship. So he was already able to just kind of visualize, okay, those kind of angles are going to work. This is, like this is too tight or whatever the case. But I think it helped him prepare the shoot like it would be a live action shoot.
Yeah. And obviously, I mean, I watched all the pieces. This is one of the goriest ones. So that was kind of fun. What I think was cool about it, honestly, is because it obviously had a rich character development that goes on, and then you combine it with some real hardcore gore, and sometimes it's hard to make those two things work together, but it was really kind of great to just sort of like see this. And in just a short period of time, you start to develop feelings for the characters that don't last very long in the short. So it's kind of an amazing feat, right?
No, for sure. It's, I mean, we've been talking about it with Tim and just the entire team and the crew. Like it's, this is the same team that has been working at Blur for a long time. Like, and there's something about this piece that, once it comes out, even though it's the same people that work on it, there's just something different about it. And there's just something about the way you feel about those characters, because, there's just so many of those reaction shots of like, just like looking at each other, like sideways a little bit. There's always this small things that just really make it feel like a Fincher movie, and it's very interesting to see how, when you give the same tools to different directors, what they do with it, and what it inspires for them. But yeah, the gore part of it is, that was his favorite story from a long time ago, and he always wanted to do this one, and I think it's probably one of the goriest things he's done as a filmmaker. But
yep. And he's done Zodiac.
Right, he's done an Alien, right?
Yeah, he did he doesn't talk about Alien 3 that much, but that's
right. But yeah, he brings his sense of character development to a piece that has a lot of gore, and it's still a Fincher. It's still a Fincher piece,
Yeah.
It's still one of the things that just keeps you glued to the screen and just want to know where it's going.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's interesting. I worked on Girl with a Dragon Tattoo with him. Which you worked on the title sequence to that, right?
Yeah. That was, I supervised the title sequence, and that was the first time we were working with him at the time.
Oh, really?
It was, yeah, which was also a great experience.
Yeah, it was, and I just remember him in this. It's a little intimidating when you're going to go in a screening room with David Fincher. It sounds like that, and I've worked with big name directors, but he's always been he's actually very soft spoken and says exactly what he means. And it's really kind of refreshing to have such great feedback from someone like that. So I can imagine that
For sure.
it being really cool to work with him on that. Okay, so I want to make sure we get through a lot of them. So I also want to talk about our 3 robot friends that came back, So this is an interesting idea that Love, Death, and Robots has it's a returning character that comes back a little bit, right? It kind of reminds me of, I just did a podcast with Bill Plimpton recently, which I'm very excited about. Just came out not long ago, but it reminded me of Liquid Television in the 90s, which I think, is very cool. And Liquid Television would have a series of little shorts, and then this reoccurring Beavis and Butthead would keep showing up, right? And so I have this I'm excited to see that the 3 robots are back, and that it's kind of this is like the new Beavis and Butthead, right? For Liquid Television. So,
that's awesome. I never thought about the 3 robots that way, but
right.
No, it's great.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about that one.
I mean, this one was always like one of our favorite ones in the original, in the first season.
Yep.
There's, it was such a joy to work on the first episode because at the time, we started from this short story from John Scalzi. And the short story is great, but it's like there's not a lot of world developed around it. But the two directors at the time, the Headless guys, just took that story and then just kept absolutely everything that was great about it, but just expanded it and then just brought this universe and then just this, those colorful characters and that was always it was always a favorite of ours because first we love John Scalzi, we love his stories and we love him as a friend of the series. But then we loved just developing that story and we loved working with that Spanish company, Blow, on it. So, when we were looking for stories for the second season, we kind of wanted to bring the magic back a little bit because, I mean, we know that the fans just reacted well to the story, but and for us, it was such a joy to work on it. So that's why we tried to, we wanted to bring them back. And so John Scalzi just was like, yeah, I'd love to, do another story, about them. And so, we started there and then, the Headless guys couldn't come back, unfortunately. So, but we got in touch with Patrick Osborne, who directed it this time, and
Patrick Osborne directed it.
Yep, the second one. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's the whole universe just kind of came back. So Below did the CG again, but Patrick did a fantastic job just directing it this time, and so I think it's been a great little sequel. I think we don't want to do too many of these because I think what makes the show so interesting to a lot of people is just that we just get to tell new stories and not just constantly rehashing the same ones.
Right.
But every once in a while, I think it's interesting to just kind of have some of the most popular characters just kind of come back for a little bit.
Yeah, I think it's great. I think you're absolutely right. I mean, that's just one of the things that, like you were saying at the beginning, one of the things that makes this unique is the fact that you're not getting the same thing over and over again. It's almost a guarantee when you're watching Love, Death, and Robots that you are going to get something like you've never seen before every time, which honestly is refreshing today instead of seeing the same thing over and over again, which is very common.
I think it's, and that's one of that's one of the main reasons why I love working on the show. It's, you can never get comfortable.
Right.
You always have to just kind of reinvent something, and you can't get too comfortable and be like, oh, we'll just redo the same. We just have to replace a few things, and then otherwise we'll just reuse the same pipeline and the same characters. I think it's that's what I love about it. Just finding new friends that we can work with, whether it's new directors or new companies, and then just have everybody just kind of invent new things, because I think we need it these days. There's just so many sequels everywhere, and it's these franchises, once they start to work, then you just occupy everything, whether it's it's in movies or in streaming. So I love that we're able to do something a little different.
I think what's nice about it, honestly, for me, is it's specifically that, listen, it's fresh every time, because that's the definition almost of the show, right? It's going to be something different every time. And I think that's really kind of great. But I think what's also wonderful about it is that it has completely validated that it's okay to do fresh and new ideas, because the studios don't necessarily risk them that much anymore. And Netflix definitely tried it out on season 1 and that worked great. Let's keep going. And now it's like people can't wait for the next season, and then the articles come out all over the place when a new season's coming out, excited about what's going to be in it. So it's really kind of awesome to see that there is definitely room for new ideas in the lexicon of filmmaking and animation.
Yeah, and it's great that, like you said, I think it's great that Netflix gave us the chance to do that. All props to them, but it's also great to find that, to see that there's an audience for it and that people tune in for it, because, nothing would get done without the people that are watching it. So.
Yep. The next one I want to talk about is The Very Pulse of the Machine, which is, one of the ones that sticks to very much a classic animation style, even though it is 3D. I'm assuming it's all 3D though, right?
It is, yeah.
Yeah. But the idea of having, toon shading or cell shading on things and having that look of things, you guys obviously have some experience in that area, right?
We do, but at the same time, not that much. I mean, we do have a little bit of we call it like 2.5D now. It's kind of the style that, that's been popularized by Fortiche a little bit, and Arcane. It's very popular with a lot of video game clients these days, and we love to do it, but this one was done in Japan by a company called Polygon.
Oh, I know Polygon.
Yeah. And we'd never worked with them, but we'd heard from like all of them, obviously, like everybody, for a long time, but when the director Emily Dean kind of did her pitch, she wanted to she really wanted to kind of pay like respect to Moebius and like the original like heavy metal magazine kind of artists, and so Moebius was like kind of like one of the ones that she really wanted to kind of evoke in the short. So, but Polygon has this they've done quite a bit of work with toon shading, and in a way that is very different from the way we've done it. And so we reached out and we asked them if they would be interested, and I'm so glad they did, and because it was such a there was a bit of a cultural a cultural discussion, early on, because they're not used to doing the kind of story that we tell, and especially for a more Western audience, but once it started to click, it was great, because it was a great collaboration. Like I love all these guys over there. Like they were some of the most amazing people to work with.
Right. Well, I obviously, I don't know if you remember meeting I think he's the president of Polygon. He was at THU. He's been at THU for many years.
Yeah. I remember hearing of Polygon for the first time at THU. Like,
really?
I think we were there at the same time.
Yeah.
He gave a talk about what they've been doing for years, and I thought his talk was like really inspiring, like just the way he approached like the changes in his industry, and it was he's such an amazing soul, to and it was a great opportunity to work with him, and I'm so glad we did.
It's something very interesting, speaking to him, because he's been on the podcast as well, and it was interesting to hear from him, speaking specifically of Japanese anime, right? Because obviously he's Japanese and they do things in Japanese, but he actually grew up quite a bit in the United States as well. So, right. So it's an interesting bridge between those two cultures. He's very good at communicating that. But one thing,
absolutely, yeah.
but one of the things that what became interesting to me, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts on it, is about anime specifically, right? Because anime is now very, very popular in the United States. It has been for a while, but the interest is gaining more every day in terms of that animation. And I think that one of the things people are interested in is that anime can be definitely not necessarily specifically for kids. It's more of a style on its own. But one of the things that he was telling me about was how the anime industry in Japan is, doesn't necessarily pay very well. And that is the reason they get paid by how many minutes of animation they do. And so in order to get through it faster, they do a lot of hold frames.
All right.
And so they do. I was like, oh, that's the reason for that. But what's interesting is that it became a style, like all of the expressions are styles and things like that. And I was like, oh, well, that's interesting. But what are your thoughts on anime today and how it's influencing things, and if it has an influence on the kind of work that you guys are going to be doing for Love, Death, or have been doing for Love, Death, and Robots?
I'm trying to keep up a little bit because my son is 14 and he has been watching quite a bit, and I've been trying to keep up a little bit. I have to admit that it's I'm probably the Western audience that he was talking about at the beginning that doesn't always understand all the rules and all the I think what you were saying about maybe like some of the length and then some of the hold frames, but is kind of one of the cultural things that I would say we had to kind of have to work out between us, and it's and they Polygon is, as far as I understand, they've done a lot of TV shows, like so very long. They can do a lot of animation quickly, but we wanted, it's almost like we wanted to compress all that into something shorter. But that had we didn't want the whole frames that much. We want something a lot smoother, and so. So I think it was interesting for them to just kind of try to see how they can compress the same amount of stuff in something smaller.
Right.
And so that was interesting, but I think it was great for all of us to just kind of see how to do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I have to admit that my knowledge of anime does not go beyond just a few of the big titles that I've seen my son just put on TV like every once in a while.
Right.
But I can see how that's that's kind of the leading wave of like a lot of shows that are coming later, and it often feels like there's more influence, like more anime influence in like some of the work of like French studios than American ones, I feel like.
Yes, I agree. I think that there are definitely some influence of French studios that are very powerful. And I think you mentioned Mobius as well. So I think that was very good, and it definitely shows now that you say it that the Mobius wasn't highly influential on that piece, and that's really cool. And my daughter's teaching me about anime too, so. I'm in the same boat as you. I'm watching a lot of, things like Attack on Titans and Death Note. It's all very dark. Right. It's all very dark.
It is very dark. It is very much darker than I expected.
It's not Beauty and the Beast, that's for sure, which is kind of cool.
Oh no.
But at the same time, I showed, it's like, all right, well, I'll show you my favorite anime. So I showed her Akira, and she was like, oh, that's pretty cool. So, which is fine. Okay.
Right. But it's great. Like, I love being able to like just watch at least a few episodes and be like, wow, this is something I've never seen, and that's, because we're always interested in like all these different types of animation. Like we can't say that we're like trying to do Love, Death, and Robots and show like animation to a larger audience and and refuse to see what's coming out of Japan, like with anime or like, of Asia, like in a broader sense.
And
like it's
yeah, and they have really crazy creative stories that happen sometimes. I don't know.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if you've ever seen Assassination Classroom, but it's absolutely insane. It's a classroom full of students that learn to be assassins, and they're being taught by a teacher who's actually an alien octopus with a smiley face who's threatened to destroy the moon, and they have to take the class and they're trying to assassinate him at the same time. It's hilarious. This is the craziest thing ever.
I guess, yeah.
So I know, like, yep.
Yeah, I tried to watch that one with my son. Yeah.
It is the funniest thing. Anyway, so back to Love, Death, and Robots. Sorry, I didn't mean to bring that up. I was like, that is crazy. Okay, so the other one, obviously, we had Alberto Mielgo come back, and obviously he did The Witness in the first season, and he did Jibaro. I think that's the name of it. Is that correct? Yeah.
I think it's pronounced Jibaro.
Jibaro, yes, because he's Spanish, right? But it was.
What a.
Go ahead.
Yeah, what a piece.
Yeah.
I mean, it's. I feel like I've been talking about Alberto and Jibaro quite a bit, like since the series came out. But it's. I always love to tell the story of he blew us away with The Witness, like before it even before it even came out, like just the screen test he was showing us, it was like, yeah, it's gonna look like this, like and we're like, wow, I've never seen anything like this, yeah. Mm-hmm. And then when The Witness was finished, like it was even beyond like all the stuff that he'd shown us, and this time with the Jibaro, like he wanted to do something that was very different, in terms of the period, the style, it was a labor of love for that team, man. Like I can only imagine what they must have gone through to just put this beast of a short together.
Yeah.
But like I've followed the story from the moment like he started to write the first script and he sent it, and then I've seen the back and forth with Tim, and then I've seen him like just do the storyboard, and then and all that, and like it was always very, very impressive. But then there was a point where we didn't really hear from him for a few weeks, and then and I was on vacation. And when he sent like his, this is it's not final, but this is like close to final. There's all the renders now, like it looks like something with all the sound, and I remember like putting it on the big TV to just watch it, and I was there with my girlfriend and we're watching it, and then just like silence at the end, and I remember just like tearing up because I was like I could see all the pain, like through every shot, all the things that he didn't need to do, but he did it anyway. And all those things that just because it's just his vision, and that's what he wanted to present, and you see something like this and you're like, this, we live for those kind of moments, like those moments where you're like, well, this is what I'm working in this industry for, like this is it's like when you see the Jurassic Park for the first time, or when you see like your first time seeing like Star Wars, or like there's just this thing about it where you're like, I don't understand it completely because it's so different from what I'm used to seeing, but man, I just want to watch it again because it's awesome.
Yeah, I have a lot of things to say. I mean, I think what you said, like you've never seen something like this before, it reminded me long time ago. This proves how old I am, but back in the day do you remember John McEnroe and Bjorn Borg were tennis players back in the late 70s, 80s. And there was a big rivalry, obviously, between the two of them. And one thing that McEnroe or Jimmy Connors, one of them says, like, we're all playing tennis. Bjorn Borg is doing something else. right? Referring to the fact that he's so good that we have no idea how to play tennis with him. And I think that's the same thing with Alberto. Like, we're all doing animation. Alberto's doing something else. I don't know what that is, but it's amazing. And I have no idea how it's done, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. But like, it's a different way to do animation, but it's, I think when you break it down, like, it's the same techniques of animation that we all use, but he's using it for such different, like, through such a different way to like tell the stories sometimes, like, and it's, I mean, the combination of all of that is just something unique, and it's like just how he incorporated like the dancing in there, and like, it's, at first you're like, whoa, are they gonna dance? And then you're like, yeah, they're dancing. It's cool,
Now, of what you know, what is his technique? Like, he's not motion capturing, right? This is all kind of rotomation in some ways. Am I correct in saying that?
Yep.
Yeah.
He spends a lot of time just shooting reference, or, I mean, from the moment he starts his storyboards, that's kind of his Bible, like he does his storyboards, then he does admit it that is that's very tight, like, based on his storyboard. We could release like those his story reels, like whether it was for The Witness or Jibaro, like, I think we could release that like as an episode of Love, Death and Robots, and people would love it because they're so complex. There's just so much in it, and they're so cool.
Right.
But based on that, then he's going to shoot reference with either himself or some actors, and then that's what he gives to his animation team, and then they deliver. But it's, there's a lot of animators at Blur that are like, man, if it was as easy as just like doing some roto animation on top of it, then we would all do it. Like, it's no small task, and yet they make it look so easy.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I mean, what's interesting to me is, as you're well aware, but some of my listeners may not know it. I claim that Snow White, the original Snow White from the 30s, was actually the first virtual production, because they actually did footage of Snow White. Actually, they shot her on film, and then they traced on top of that her performance and that's why Snow White looked so like no one had ever seen anything like that in animation before, because it was based on natural emotion. And to me, when I look at some of his work, I feel that same feeling in some ways, right? There's a feeling like this is animated, but it doesn't look like mocap either, right? There's something different about the way that it's animated. And I'm not saying that mocap is better or worse. I'm just saying it just has a feeling to it that's got this different essence to it, which I think is incredible.
Yeah, it's funny because, I was like, there was a movie when we grew up, when we were growing up, like, called Fire and Ice. You remember, like, that Frank Frazetta? That one was using a lot of that animation roto on top of like footage or stuff like that, and it had like a different feel, but it still felt like animation. Like it was a little bit in between, but like they push it to a level that goes beyond that. Like, because when you look at some of the character designs between The Witness or Jibaro, like you look at those characters, you're like, they're not real, like they're cartoons, but with that animation, it feels real. You just forget about the cartoony or like the stylized aspect, I should say. And it's pretty.
I mean, it's so much, like, and the world is so rich and texture, and then you've got things like the jewelry and the water and the river.
Oh, I know. And the horses
in the river. Oh my God. It's so much. I mean, how was it for you to give him feedback? I mean, it must have been like,
I'm here to help. mostly, and I'm here to just make sure that, like things get delivered, but, and that we don't have like, huge problems when it's time to just, package it all together and go to DI. But, like people like Alberto, like it's like, I'm not going to give him feedback on much,
Right.
like, I mean, he knows what
Sure.
he's doing, and we're more than happy to just let him do his
Right.
thing. I love to help when people like ask for extra suggestions or where they're stuck on
Sure.
something, because like I've got a little bit of experience with
Yes, you do.
just getting things unstuck, but it's but I mean, Alberto doesn't get stuck with something. Like he knows where he's going, and he just like goes full force.
Yeah.
So I think it's like with him on something like this, it's very like I don't have to do much, and I'm okay with that.
And it's quite amazing. We should also note that he won an Oscar this year as well. On top of all that.
That's right. Oh, he's very It's
Yep.
and I'm glad he did. I'm glad he's able to. I'm glad that we've just been able to like just give him a bit of a platform for him to just express like his talent, and for him to. It's great to have somebody like this as your. He's a bit of our North Star, like for the show, because we want to show that animation can do different things, but at the same time, it's difficult to get out of like our own ways sometimes, like in the way we tell stories and the way we do CG. It's so great to have somebody like him just show us like, no, guys, this is how far we can push it, and it's great to because he's such an inspiration for the rest of the. Team,
I think you're absolutely right, and I think what's interesting is like I mean he's definitely a good director and animator, but what The Witness, when they came out, I think that sort of made him a lot more people aware of Alberto Mielgo, right? And he started doing a lot more interesting things after that. And then obviously he did some great pieces, but he did the Windshield Wiper, I think it's called, right? That's the one that he won and so that's what he won the Oscar for. In the same year that he did Jibaro, which is even in my mind even more incredible than the Windshield Wiper, and so it's really great to have that. And then you also, like you said, you're getting Patrick Osborne, who's also a really great animation director, to come on board and do some of the things that he's doing, and look at all of that. So I think it's great that you have that Blur and Love, Death, and Robots is a platform to bring new upcoming animators and directors a platform for them to express themselves and see things. It does remind me a little bit of Liquid Television in some ways, which I think was also really cool, but it's to the next level. So let's just put it that way, right? You guys have a platform for young directors or directors in general to be able to express themselves or find, either become better known as incredible animation directors and directors of animation, such as Alberto, or even very well-known directors in Fincher, and allow him to experiment in animation and create his own, see what that medium is like. I mean, does it feel like you guys have this experiment? Like everything is a little bit like, let's see what this guy can do. Let's see what this person can do, or this woman can do. Like, does it feel like you can do that, or is it in a lot of ways?
I mean, to a certain degree, yes, but at the same time, like we're not, like I wouldn't say we're careless about it. Right. We're like we really want to make sure that this is going to be true to Tim's vision, and that this is that this fits into the overall Love, Death, and Robots umbrella, which is difficult to define, but when it starts to kind of veer off, and starts to kind of go off the reservation a little bit, like you feel it, and we're able to see that this is, maybe there's something in the tone, there's something in the way that the story is being told that is, either a little too light or a little too serious. Like I think there's I think we're starting to kind of have like a good idea of what the overall tone is, but it's not, you know, it's not necessarily easy. So to answer your question, yeah, if we feel that this director is really gonna stick to the overall tone of the show, we do our best to bring them in, whether it's new directors or new companies. But like I said, we don't want the show to become this big experiment where anything goes. Like it's because I don't think people would really understand, like if it was
Sure.
kind of, you know, too experimental.
Well, tell us, actually, just give us a little idea of what the process is. So let's say for season 3, it says, okay, you guys are going to do, let's say, you know, Netflix says, okay, we're greenlit to do season 3. Do you start with a series of shorts? There usually is a lot of shorts that you guys find, short stories, things of that nature, and say, we're going to turn this into an animation? Or do people come up to you and say, I'd like to be a director on the next show? Like, how does it work? And how do you come up to the decision of what you guys are going to put together on this?
Well, we got a long list of stories that we'd love to make. Like, you know, we only get to do we only get to do a few. The way it works is like, you know, if you come to the office, you'll see like we've got those like little cards that we put on the wall, and each one is a story, and so they're all for the most part they're all like already they're all like short stories that have already been published. So we all read them and we all put them on the wall, and then it's the big puzzle at the beginning of the season. How do we have like a mix of stories, and then once we have this, we think we have the stories, then we try to have like a variety of styles, and so we do that, and then how, you know, and then how does budget factor in, and so it's just, you know, this big push and pull for a bit until we land on like what we think is a good mix, and so and it doesn't feel too repetitive, but it also still feels a little familiar. You know, it's a lot of parameters to make sure that it works. And then usually we'll try to reach out to directors and companies that we, you know, either we've been like big fans of, or, I mean, you know, people reach out to us all the time and show us what they can do, but we don't wait for directors to just kind of call before we assign the stories. We usually try to take care of that part. You know, it's like working with
Right.
companies. We just want to
Right. But obviously, you know, you have someone like, you know, some of the other stories where people come to you with a story, say, hey, I have a story I would love to make it in Love, Death, and Robots series. So how do you approach those? You have to sort of find out if it works within the lineup, right?
You know, I believe there's only been 3 original stories
Interesting.
over the three seasons of Love, Death, and Robots, and 2 of them were written by Alberto.
Right. Gotcha.
It's you know, it's and it's not like we don't like new stories. It's just it already is such a mammoth like kind of task to develop this show and juggle all those stories and all those studios, and that at least we know we're starting from something that's working, and it cuts like a, you know, a stage of development out of the mix, because and you know, and Tim also has such a like an amazing relationship with all the authors of the short stories. Like, you know, I mean, he's been on your show multiple times, so you know how much he loves to read and how much he loves like all those like sci-fi authors, and he's, you know, like his idols growing up were, it wasn't like Van Halen or like rock stars. It was, you know, it was all those
Neil Stephenson.
all
and
those
all those
sci-fi
guys.
writers.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So he he wants to be able to choose those stories from those people he loves, and then he also wants to make sure that the adaptation will be done properly because he feels indebted to all those people. So
Right.
So
That's awesome.
That's usually what.
Yeah, I think it's really great, and I think definitely Tim is. He's been doing. I'm just really glad that he's been thinking about this for well over a decade or more, right? And this is what he's been.
Oh, more than that, yeah.
Yeah, and so I think that's really great that it's finally happening, and it's a great success. And I'm excited that you were part of it, and that Blur is part of it, and that you guys are doing as many amazing things. And I'm hoping. Here's to hoping that season 4 gets announced soon, so that we can all get excited about that. But
me too.
Yeah, so I have no idea if it's going to happen or not, but I'm just going to pretend it is, so that I feel excited about it. So
there's a lot of things where we don't control in this. So I think it's if it gets done, great. We'll get to tell like even more stories, and we'll be able to add to this to this great like a structure already. If not, I can only be grateful for having been part of something like this, because it's been so great to collaborate with all the studios that we've been working with, discover like new talents and new ways to approach things with all the different whether it's directors, or it's great to see new directors come to Blur and then just show having David at Blur just show Blur how to do things a little differently. But it's also great to just be able to see Unit do things a little differently than the usual projects that they're doing. The same with Polygon, or like, it's so great to just like we all really believe into just getting out of our comfort zone, and that's when the magic happens. And I think that show has been an amazing experience.
Yeah, and I think it's great because these are guys that were competitors to you in some ways, right? In terms of what you guys are doing, and now suddenly they're like, you're collaborating with them and you're working with them, and it's just kind of a different experience, and it sort of starts a different relationship in a lot of ways.
Oh, totally. I was in Paris like a couple of weeks ago, and then the first thing I did was just drop by Unit to just say hi with everybody, and like we're like we can't. Unfortunately, the pandemic has not allowed us to just kind of travel and just go see all the studios in person as much as we wanted.
Right.
But we've created amazing relationships with all the people that we've worked with, and I love everybody so dearly, and it's been a great it's been a great human experience, just as much as as the results. Are great. It's been a great show to work on, like on a daily basis.
Yeah, for sure. I can imagine. I can only imagine. But it's great. Well, listen, Jet, thank you so much for being on again. It's good to see you again. Hopefully one day.
Thank you. Yeah.
I'll be back in Culver City, and we can hang out and have a beer again or something like that.
I'll be back in Culver City also. I'll be able to walk to the podcast.
Yeah, at some point that's going to happen. But
I don't know.
But listen, thanks so much for sharing all those stories. Season 3 is absolutely amazing, and I definitely recommend, if you haven't seen it, you should go back and listen to all of them. I'm talking to the audience now. They'll definitely watch it.
Yeah, you should watch it, because that will, And if you've seen it, just watch it again until they are greenlight the season 4. That's the only way.
That's the only way. Perfect. All right. Thank you, Jet. And good luck with everything.